Hello and welcome back to Rear Winging It, the Formula One podcast. This week, Barcelona Catalunya. I'm joined by my co-host Harry.
Hello.
And as ever, our other co-host Ellie.
Hello.
Hello, welcome back. Thick and fast, the races are coming this part of the season. Did you enjoy the Barcelona Grand Prix? We'll start with that.
Yeah, it was like a nice refresher after Monaco, I think.
Yeah, a bit of actual racing.
Exciting. Sure. And
Exactly.
I think the high deg tracks leading to the unpredictability with the pit stops, I think gave this like a nice injection of strategy, which we haven't had for a few races. So that was good.
Yeah, very good point. Well, on that note, plenty to get through. So let's fire away with qualifying. So straight off the bat on the Friday in the free practice session, McLaren showed a bit of promise, didn't really materialise on the Saturday. George, Luis kind of mentioned at the end of last week after Monaco that he needed a bit of a statement this week to get himself back in the race. Mr. Saturday turned up, got himself on pole, and Leclerc crashed again for the second week in a row in qualifying. So quite a mixed bag. Did you guys watch qualifying? Did you enjoy qualifying this week? Ellie, I don't think you did you? Or
I was unfortunately away. I was busy, unfortunately, but I did watch. On catch up, I did watch the replay of it, and I will just say I was surprised with Antonelli. It was his first race this year where he didn't start from the front row, which to go 7 races,
quite impressive, yeah,
and be either P1 or P2. I think that consistency's been like very, very good, and it was obviously he wasn't on the front row this week. It wasn't necessarily like a bad qualifying. It was just that Hamilton and Russell had the edge on him. But after we spoke last week about Russell needing that reset and needing to assert himself, I guess, into the championship battle. This was, I guess, a good statement for that.
Harry, how about you? Any fun takeaways from qualifying this week?
It was a good one, unpredictable, I guess. I think people were expecting the McLarens to be a bit stronger. Piastri especially struggled, and I think struggled throughout the weekend. I will say Hadja put in a good performance, right up next to Max in 5th and 6th. And then Lawson sort of being the best of the rest as well from the racing pools, another good quality performance from him. So it was good, and it's good to see Hamilton split the Mercedes and set us up for a good race. That's true.
It was a good qualifying in that sense to know that you're in for a good race the next day. That's for sure. Okay, on to the race itself then. So before we even started, it would be interesting because Lewis was going to start on the soft tyres, alternative strategy to the Mercedes. At the time, it looked like quite a risky strategy. But do you think, in hindsight, Ellie, it was actually the best strategy that Ferrari could have gone for?
I think so, but I was also surprised Hamilton on the soft and how fierce that Ferrari has been in its straight line speed and off the start. I know that like the Mercedes has a bit more top end, but the Ferrari's acceleration's been incredible, and Barcelona's the longest or second longest, is it? Straight down into turn 1 on the calendar. So I was surprised, especially with him starting on the softer compound, that he wasn't really able to properly challenge down into turn 1. But as you said, like in hindsight, it was definitely the right strategy, especially when, I'm sure we'll get onto this, but when then Russell pit to cover him off. It definitely made sense to be on the soft as opposed to the medium, and when you're trying to beat, his main competition was Russell. I don't think he was really looking behind him too much, or maybe for Antonelli. No. But if they're going to do one thing, you might as well try the other thing.
Yeah, well, Harry, you kind of mentioned it already about the tyre degradation. Do you think that's something that we have to get used to in F1 these days, as these hot temperatures, higher degradation? Obviously, climate change happening, the calendar kind of chases the sun as it is. Do you think that's a new normal, and the teams who adjust to these hotter temperatures are ones that are going to going to prosper?
Possibly. I mean, it is, like we've seen, very race dependent still. I think in recent years, I feel like Pirelli, the tires last longer than I would like. I think the fall off often
that's fair.
isn't in the past couple of years hasn't been that drastic, and often, with the cars that we have, you'll have a big tire offset between two drivers, and that still doesn't facilitate overtakes. It doesn't feel like there's enough of a penalty there to give us better, differing strategies. So that, however, is cancelled out on these tracks like this, like Barcelona, where you have such high degradation that you can, maybe make the 3-stop work instead of 2. But having things that aren't just a guaranteed 1-stop makes the race so much better, because obviously on track action is what you want, but having the strategy mixed in there as well gives you more chances for that to happen. It keeps the race alive, because even if maybe they're not right behind each other on track, you're looking at your stopwatch constantly. You're looking at well, if he pits in 5 laps time, where's he going to come out? It makes the whole thing enjoyable. So personally, I'd like to see more, but I think that's got to be more.
And it creates more of those offsets, doesn't it?
Yeah,
between tires. If there is more of a degradation penalty, it can create those bigger offsets, like you say, to create those chasing down kind of moments. Yeah. Well, Harry, I'll stick with you actually as our resident Red Bull fan. Isaac Hadjar, like you mentioned, qualified quite well, but a horrible start from him.
Yeah.
He came out today being Tuesday, he came out publicly today and said, "I'm not a robot." Was moaning about the start procedure that Red Bull have as being too complicated. Do you think it's going to cost them, Red Bull, if they don't fix this pretty quickly?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Max has had plenty of bad starts himself. So, it's not just a Hadjar thing. Well, it was terrible. It was a really good recovery drive, but, you don't want to be thrown away that many places right off the line. Something they should look at, whether it's drivers not being fully comfortable with it, whether the system itself needs to change. Definitely very poor.
So, Elliot, I'll come to you then. So, obviously, we kind of mentioned already that Lewis started on the softs, but after only 9 laps, his softs are obviously running out. He had to make a change. However, Mercedes then, to cover this off, brought Russell in the lap afterwards. Do you understand why they did that? Do you think that was the right decision? I think starting on the mediums, if you're going to come in the lap after someone on softs comes in, what was the point?
Yeah, no, I
Give me
agree
your
with
answer,
that.
if you want to expand.
And also, then deciding to stick with the 2-stop, but having to run that second stint for such a long time was odd, I think. Lewis, I don't know, it seemed strange. I thought that they should have carried on, but as Harry said, you don't have the same kind of degradation, and I do think that the different compounds are not as massively different as I feel like maybe they used to be. And so I guess Lewis wasn't having the massive pace advantage of being on the soft anyway, and they were all having high degradation. So I guess at that point they just thought, we'll go with him and stay out in the front. I don't know, but I know a lot of them were really struggling with their tyres early on, and it just seems strange to
high fuel
then,
loads.
Yeah, at the high, exactly. But it just seems strange to pit the medium tyre so early. I know Max as well was on the radio saying he could hardly even keep it in a straight line, let alone corner with them on. So yeah, a lot of people weren't happy early on with the tyres. Yeah,
so it's interesting then that on the first 2 rounds of pit stops, Ferrari boxed Lewis first and took the initiative. Do you think that kind of stole momentum away from Mercedes then? It was like Ferrari the one setting the initiative in this race. It's something I don't think we see from Ferrari too much. They're quite a slow to react kind of team. Hamilton, obviously 41 years old. You can't get more F1 experience than Lewis Hamilton has. Do you think, Harry, that this is like the Hamilton effect rubbing off on Ferrari? I mean, they've been around for a long time, so maybe that's a bit harsh on them to say that. But do you think having that elder statesman in there who's been there, done that, is helping Ferrari in their decision making this year?
I think it's definitely a factor. It's definitely a factor. I mean, Lewis has talked about how coming into it last year was maybe a bigger shock than he expected, and having that cultural pushback and cultural differences that I guess Ferrari are known for was, maybe harder to adapt to than he was expected it to be. But he's also talked about how they've changed and accommodated him. And you're right. I think Ferrari sometimes have not taken the initiative on strategy. They're much better than they used to be. But when you've got, we had Hamilton stuck in the middle of the Mercedes, you're maybe expecting the team with the two cars to have control of the strategy. They can sort of force your hand a little bit.
Yeah.
And yet Ferrari were in control, and that first pit stop from Russell covering him off, you're then on the back foot because your tyres might not line up with, like Hamilton had the optimum tyres to do the 3-stop.
Yeah.
Well, from the off, Mercedes are trying to match them, but then are not committing to that strategy. You've got to run your own race, still taking into account what other people are doing. But I think that's where Mercedes lost it a little bit there.
I agree with that. And not to mention the fact that Ferrari only had one horse in the race, as it were, for the win, was because of Leclerc's crash in qualifying, which we'll expand a bit more on Leclerc this weekend. Maybe Mercedes are a bit rusty still at leading races and being right at the cutting edge.
I think if I can just add this, I guess Ferrari went in knowing that they were doing a 3-stop, and so when they pit Lewis, they knew they were doing a 3-stop. Whereas I guess Mercedes had gone in to do a 2, and then I don't know. Maybe they just thought, well, we'll cover him off, and then if our tyres last, we can do a 2, and that could be quicker. Or if we need to pit again, he'll have pit again, and so we can cover the 3. So maybe that was their justification for it. I don't know.
I think so, but then I think if you're pitting after like 9 laps on that first stint, I think you need to commit to it. You're going to try and say, okay, well, we're going to hold track position, and we're gonna pit, the lap after Hamilton basically every time to try and keep it, and they didn't do that. So you're sort of doing a half in, half out kind of thing.
Yeah,
which I think
do one or the other. Don't half. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I agree.
But maybe with the deg being as high as it was, they knew that the pace advantage Hamilton would get after that first pit stop, if they didn't come in after 9 laps with Russell, maybe they knew that they had to match it. And maybe that was kind of, written in the stars from the second they lined up on the grid with that tyre set up like that maybe that's why Mercedes lost. It's hard to say because we don't know the data they have on the degradation of their tyres in that kind of phase of the race. So moving down the order a bit then to discuss the midfield. One thing I will notice, this is just an off comment, watching the race this week, there really wasn't much camera time spent on the midfield. It was very much at the front of the race. Not complaining, it was interesting up there, ended interestingly. Maybe that's a Lewis Hamilton effect, I don't know. But either way, as I wrote this plan for the episode today, I wrote down, double points for Alpine, P7, P8, only for me to check the news and realise that Colapinto was given a 10-second penalty to be dropped down to P10. So another week where you can't trust the result as they cross the line. That, however, did give RB a double points finish as well. Do you think that leaves Williams in a bit of bother now? A few weekends in a row where some of their rivals have got some decent points against them. What do you think is going on with Williams this year? This was meant to be their year of the changing regulations, James Vowles. This is why they brought him in. Where do you think Williams go from here, Ellie?
I really don't know. I think it was Harry last year predicted Williams to finish 5th, and we all thought that was ridiculous. And then I think this year we were all putting them there. We were thinking maybe they would be able to challenge for a few podiums if the racing was a bit
best of the rest,
wide,
right?
A bit more open. We had them firmly cemented as the best of the rest, and this year they are down there with the new teams and with the Aston Martin, so they're not in the midfield anymore. Do you know what I mean? The new
Yeah.
teams,
Yeah,
points-
no,
points
new teams you
wise-
expect to struggle.
yeah.
Like
So,
points
obviously I know
wise
Audi aren't
as a
new, but-
team, just to put it in perspective. So, points wise as a team, Cadillac dead last, 0 points. Aston Martin 1, Audi 2. You've got Haas on 21, and slotted in between those kind of two gaps, you've got Williams with 11 points. So they are sort of bang in the middle of,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, the real stinkers of the bottom three.
Yeah.
Well, so you're
but
saying
not quite.
so you're saying
touching
that like
distance to
last
Haas.
year they would have been dead last, right? If you
Yeah,
ignore the
so
two new teams.
I
Yeah.
mean, apart from Aston Martin, who
Yeah.
are also
Well,
down
obviously,
there.
I know that last year Audi were Sauber with their lovely green. So they were a team. They're just a different team. You know, it wasn't a completely new team. But yeah, I think they're in big trouble, especially with the way that they were so public about their development for this year and the fact that they are in a Mercedes. They have a Mercedes engine, and that Mercedes engine is
I was
clearly
just checking that. Yeah.
pretty good.
I was like, I'm sure they have a Mercedes engine in there, so they should be doing well. And I was like, they can't do, and they do. They have the best engine that's
Yeah.
available to them in that car, and they're still struggling this much.
I think
Well, not according to the FIA. Apparently,
Yeah.
Red Bull says the best.
Red Bull. Yeah, Red Bull apparently have the best engine, but no one in Red Bull could really figure that one out. But with the Mercedes, I think they didn't really tell their customer teams how to get the most out of their engine. But obviously,
No.
when you think about Alpine, have come in and are now a Mercedes custom team,
Yeah.
and
Customer.
Williams, and you think about Alpine last year and Williams last year, and the way that their fortunes have kind of switched this year, I think that's what's more alarming than almost anything else when you compare those two teams and their differing fortunes. Especially, I'm not saying, you know, I think we have respect for Gasly and maybe not as much for Colapinto, but when you think about the Williams drivers, they have one of the best lineups on the grid. So to be really toiling down at the back is it's surprising from where we thought they would be.
Yeah. I guess the thing for them is to maybe to not panic. You know, I think a lot of teams might have. If you look at what a team like Alpine have done in previous years when they're struggling, is fire everybody, rip it up, start again. I mean, that's seeming to pay dividends this year. But I think Williams, being the kind of organisation they are, that they won't do that, and I don't think they should. I do think someone like James Vowles is the man to lead them out of it. I guess time will tell. You know, we still are only 7 races into this new era. You know, plenty of time for them to figure it out this year going into next year.
Exactly.
Go on, Harry.
And the margins, really are so small. Like, these aren't, you know, for Williams, maybe for Aston Martin it is, but Williams, these are not seconds. You know, these are still tenths of seconds. You know, the difference between, you know, where they were last year in 5th, say, and where they are now.
And if they
and it only takes a small
like a really
mistakes.
Yeah, and if they do deliver like a competitive upgrade package, then it could propel them back into that midfield as opposed to where they are now, kind of in no man's land at the, you know, in between the back and the middle.
Well, speaking of the back, Aston Martin, double DNF. Alonso's last ever home Grand Prix, a DNF. Quite sad to see. Harry, do you think this is Fernando's last season in F1? I think it has to be at this point, right? All the signs are there.
He's hinted a little bit. Obviously, we don't have Barcelona next year. It's going rotating, isn't it? So I could see
But we
this
will have
being
Madrid,
his last.
so
Yeah. So there'd still be, but I think he said specifically, or maybe he said home, but I think he said maybe last.
No, I think he said Barcelona actually. Yeah,
last-
so maybe
yeah, last
maybe
Barcelona.
that's hinting. Yeah.
In my mind, I think he holds out one more year, but I mean,
I think he's too proud, and not in the sort of. I think he's too proud to finish his career like this.
yeah,
I think
it does
Fernando
feel a bit
Alonso,
like that.
the man he is, does not want to end his career in this situation. Well, so with Stroll retired first, and then Alonso retired not too long after him. That brought out a virtual safety car. So before we get on to that, I just had a comment here that Antonelli after the first round of pit stops caught up to George Russell quite easily. They had a bit of a tussle, and I think George did stay ahead before getting away again. After the virtual safety car stint, Antonelli also caught up and then passed him again. Is that concerning for George that Antonelli clearly has this big pace advantage on him? Or do you think that was car, tyre specific to this weekend? Or do you think he should be quite concerned that his teammate can seemingly just close the gap up on him, Ellie?
Oh, he should definitely be concerned. We spoke, he had a good qualifying, but his race pace wasn't as competitive. And as you say, Antonelli caught up. And it wasn't a race where you would say, oh, maybe Russell was just managing the pace. It wasn't like that because, in the second phase, Antonelli did get past. Yeah. And it wasn't, maybe part of it was Russell going, okay, we're on a 2-stop and I've got a long way to go. I need to manage these tyres and I need to, but...
Well, he did on the first stint, he said. He mentioned, why didn't you tell me we were going to box so early? I was managing. Yeah. So maybe that's an excuse for the first round pit stops. But yeah, I think from then on, it was just a pure pace difference.
I agree with that. So yeah, I think it is alarming because it's a trend that we've seen this last, 6 races now. And if he wants to be in a championship battle, he can't be caught and passed quite so easily.
Yeah.
I think I did see Mercedes put out like a post recapping the race and saying it was a tough weekend and all this, and Russell wasn't mentioned once in it, which was quite funny.
That's quite funny given he finished P2.
Well, exactly. He was P2. I mean, it was strange. I'm sure they posted other things celebrating it or whatever, but it was just the sort of race recap and he wasn't mentioned. And then they posted a video of an engineer saying that, at one of the pit stops we'd adjusted George's car and it was set up wrong and there was a setup issue and that impacted his pace.
Interesting.
I think from what I was sort of seeing, that was one of the latter pit stops, when obviously his pace was a lot worse than it had been maybe at the start of the race compared to, say, Lewis. Still, I mean, I don't know if that doesn't excuse the whole race, and I don't know how much of that is a cop-out or not. But like
it sounds a bit
saying, it's been consistent. Yeah.
Can I just say, I don't know where it happened, but when Antonelli did pass George Russell, and then when he ended up retiring, his front wing was damaged, and then when he retired, broken. Yeah. Where did he pick up that damage from? Because he didn't make contact with Russell.
I know, that was never really clarified, actually. Maybe that's something I should looked up before we started recording. Because the overtake looked clean enough. Like,
yeah, he had the front wing was wobbling before he overtook.
Was it front right wing? Because he did go...
Yeah, front right.
Yeah. Because he did, when he was overtaking down the straight, he was right on the dirty side and maybe even went off the track a little bit with the front right wheel. So I don't know... he didn't hit anything, so I wouldn't think it would be enough. But...
It was the top bit of, they have almost like an equal sign. It wasn't the bottom bit, it was the top bit that had broken. But I didn't see it happen in the race, and then nobody on commentary kind of mentioned it. But at first I thought, they must have made contact, but there wasn't any contact, so I'm not sure how much that would have been affecting Antonelli's pace. If people were saying, George didn't have the right setup, well, Antonelli had a broken front wing, that couldn't have helped either.
Moving on then, so clearly the pivotal moment of the race, really, in terms of race victory, was the virtual safety car after Alonso's retirement, which basically gave Lewis a totally free pit stop. Do you think that virtual safety cars and what they do are having the desired impact that the FIA wanted when they got brought into the race? Because for me, I think it kind of robbed us of what would have been quite an interesting finish because essentially Lewis had an entirely free pit stop to put on fresh tyres, and the race win was then never in doubt. Whereas with a safety car where the pack bunches up, maybe that would have been a different decision for Ferrari, and we would have had a slightly different outcome, or at least a rolling restart. Do you enjoy virtual safety cars, or are you a purist like me who prefers the full safety cars?
It's tricky, isn't it? Because in some sense, like you say, you get the excitement of a little bit more strategy. What do we do here? You get the field clumping back up. You get that rolling restart, and it can lead to, some more overtakes and stuff like that. But then I suppose you lean on the, someone might be having a dominant race. It's ruined. You can have everything going right for you, and then it's all ruined by something out of your control. And the VSC maintaining those gaps, alleviates some of those problems. And it also, I think the biggest benefit is if it is like, the car stopped on the side of the track and you can roll it out, it does mean we get back racing quicker as well, which is quite nice.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a good point. What I would agree with Harry, because also you don't have to wait for the safety car to catch everyone up. It's instant.
Yeah.
And then it will just end. It doesn't end at the end of the lap. It just ends, and as you say, Harry, you get underway much quicker. You don't have to deal with all the lap cars. So if as you say, Harry, if it's a short thing, you can just roll a car out, or there's a bit of debris, someone just needs to run out and get it. I think I do like a virtual safety car. If a virtual safety car's out for a long time, or if it goes virtual safety car, oh no, full safety car, I don't like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. That is one thing that really does annoy me, and maybe that's my main issue with it, is when it goes from virtual safety car to full safety car, because then you really do get a huge advantage if you manage to pit within that window, and that feels more like a luck thing than a strategy decision.
I don't think we get that too much anymore. I think the last
I think they're more consistent with it now. Well, speaking of things going bad, we only had 14 finishes in this race, so with a few laps to go, Antonelli and Leclerc, we mentioned Antonelli breaking down, Antonelli and Leclerc both broke down on the same lap, and we only ended up with 14 finishes despite no crashes in the actual race. There were, what's that, eight non-finishes, all due to mechanicals, no actual contact or incidents. Do you like that level of unreliability, Harry? Do you think it brings some intrigue and drama, or do you prefer the days we had a few years ago when 20 started, 20 finished?
Yeah, I think we jinxed it when we had a conversation about how good reliability was.
I think so.
I think obviously having 8 cars and finish, and it's all due to pretty much unreliability, and some of them was sort of debris damage and stuff like that, but it's too much. It is too much. I mean, on the other hand, a little bit of unreliability does spice it up. It gives you these moments of virtual safety cars and safety cars, which, it does add excitement to the race. It takes away a little bit of the pure skill, and the best racer maybe not always winning, but sometimes that creates the stories, that creates the narratives, and changes up the race, and that can be exciting. So I think this regulations cycle, because it's been so different, whereas the last few maybe haven't been so much, especially on the engine side, that's why it's just so much. We're getting this so often, but they do need to get a lid on it. Obviously they've got engine upgrades they can do, so I'm sure by the end of the season it will settle down a little bit.
I'll come back to you then, Ellie, with a more general question. This was Lewis's first win in 686 days. Do you think with this win, he is now clearly the number one at Ferrari, at least for this season? Do you think he's come in and he's cemented that position for himself with a victory like this?
I would say that it's probably not the way that Ferrari would like to operate with these two drivers, but if it gets, it's 41 points now between Lewis and Antonelli, which is, it will be difficult. It'll be difficult, but as we saw last year with Max, Max was able to maximise his points when the McLarens were taking them off of each other. And if Lewis is able to do something like that, he could keep himself in the conversation. And if Leclerc, another 8 races in and we're in the final third of the season and, Leclerc's still underperforming, then they definitely would have to look to prioritise Lewis. But Leclerc is kind of Ferrari's darling and signed his new contract and I'm sure would very much like to be that number one, but you just have to do what makes the most sense. And I think if they're not even, like Leclerc and Lewis were not racing each other this weekend, if you have races like that, it's easier to get the other driver to play the team game. I wouldn't be surprised if we are in a situation further down the line where Leclerc does have to do that.
Yeah, I think especially if we find ourselves in a situation where Lewis is in contention for a championship and Leclerc is not, and against the two Mercedes, they're going to need all the help they can get, with Leclerc helping as much as he can. Obviously, there's only so much you can do. If he's performing badly and he's out of the race, that's not good either. We've seen Max have to do similar things, borderline by himself. But Harry, I'll come to you. What do you think this says about Leclerc, that Hamilton could come in and make this kind of gain on him across this year? Do you think he really is as elite as maybe we believed he was 3 or 4 years ago? Because where he is at now in his career, I think if we asked us 4 years ago, you would have assumed by now he'd have a championship under his belt. That's obviously not entirely his fault. You can put a lot of that on Ferrari, and we should. But how elite do you think he truly is?
I think he is great. I think he is up there. As one of the best drivers on the grid, but he does have periods of bad form where he gets into a bit of a slump. It seems to be maybe that's what he's sliding into. There's obviously times when types of cars fit drivers better. I'm not sure if that's what we're seeing, because it's hard to say. I mean, obviously Lewis has come much more alive. Last season, Leclerc beat him quite handily.
Yeah,
I think Leclerc does have more than a lot of other drivers. I think he pushes the car beyond what it can do. So he has the sort of the pole or crash mentality. And that combined with when he gets into these sort of slumps, I think, we saw it with his crash. It might have been his crash in quali, where the rear end starts to go. And you can't really see. Sometimes you can't control it, but a driver like Max, I feel like we've seen some great saves in those kind of situations from him. But Leclerc just puts his foot down, and he doesn't. He's still trying to go where you should just back off. The lap's gone. Take that smarter decision. And I think that's maybe making the situation look worse than it is. But I'm sure he will bounce back.
Yeah, but we'll move on. But just to note, he's had 3 crashes in his last 2 weekends. Obviously,
it's not great.
The DNF isn't maybe his fault, but he hasn't finished 2 races and he's crashed 3 times in that period. So
anymore, we'll have to start calling him Logan Sargent.
Charles Lech, Logan Sargent.
Or Mazepin, love to spin.
Moving on then, just to wrap up, talking about the race, and this was the first all-British podium. So with Antonelli's retirement from P2, Norris, we've not really spoke about Norris. He kind of went under the radar in this race, but he did his job best he could. Was coming in P4. Antonelli retired, and he gets himself a nice little podium.
He was challenging the McLarens at points. When that, I'm sorry, he is a McLaren. The Mercedes at points.
Mercedes.
So the first kind of stint of the race didn't seem to have as much pace, but then later on, he really started to come good and did actually cruise up to the back and look to challenge the Mercedes.
Turns out this was the first all-British podium with Hamilton, Russell and Norris. The first all-British podium since 1968. All-English podium as well. Ellie, do you think that's a sign that it's 1968 US Grand Prix was the last time it's happened? Do you think that is a sign that it's coming home this summer for England?
No, I think Scotland are more likely to win. No, but I did think it's funny. I know that they would have had to have this anyway, but you know that they used to have real flags for the podium.
Right,
just
yeah. Now
they,
it's the
they
virtual.
now it's like a virtual one. I thought that was pretty handy, just in case they didn't have 3 flags. I think they have 2. If it's possible, the 3 Brits could be on the podium, they have to have 3. But it was quite funny to think about, like, somebody rushing around like, oh no, we've not got enough flags, and, like, you know, running into the crowd to try and get one or something.
On that note then, we will move on to our driver of the day. New little segment this week, just to show that, you know, we have love for the midfield teams out there, even if the F1 coverage doesn't. I'm going to want your driver of the day and also your midfield maestro. So just to clarify to listeners at home, that's someone who doesn't drive for the traditional top 4 as it is of McLaren, Red Bull, Mercedes or Ferrari.
I don't think we can call it a
Harry,
traditional top 4 though, because surely traditionally Williams would 100% be one of the 4 most successful Formula 1 teams in history.
Ellie, we're Tottenham fans and we call ourselves part of the Big Six, so let's not put it that string too much. Harry,
Well,
why don't you
I
lead
wouldn't
us off
take
with
anything
your
you guys
driver of
say
the day
as,
and midfield maestro?
I wouldn't listen to anything you guys say as Tottenham fans, but I will say Nico Hülkenberg. Hülkenberg, he had good qualifying, qualified 9th, and then didn't finish the race. So maybe sounds odd on paper, but had some very unlucky damage caused by gravel from, I think it was Lawson's car, that sort of tore through his car and turned it off, basically. But before that,
it was a freak accident, wasn't it? It was really weird. It kind of hit a critical part with like a fire extinguisher or something.
Yeah, just pulled the plug.
Yeah.
But it's a shame because I think there was points on the table there for Hülkenberg today, and yeah, it was good race pace, and the Audi obviously showing more signs than the Aston Martin and the Cadillac, but still not quite there yet. So driver of the day, got to be Lewis Hamilton.
Ellie, over to you.
Yeah, I'm going to follow suit. I know that we don't like to all give the same driver of the day, but I think just the way he pulled away, and I know that he had the benefit of the virtual safety car and then the better, tyres or whatever, but like when he came out of his 3rd pit stop, he was just ahead of the Mercedes, and he ended up 20 seconds down the road. They had a bit of a squabble, which helped him out, but the way that he pulled away, and it wasn't, you could say that the virtual safety car helped him out and he didn't have to go through that traffic, but the pace that Hamilton showed in that final stint was so impressive and unexpected from what we've seen earlier this season with the Mercedes doing that. So yeah, driver of the day has to be Hamilton. And then midfield maestro, I'm going to give it to both the Racing Bulls. They both finished well. I think, as you said, they benefited from the penalty for Colapinto, and Gasly had a good race as well. But yeah, I think both of the Racing Bulls, like Lindblad's come in and he's the only rookie this year and he's doing quite well, I think, relative to Lawson, who's a more experienced driver.
I think so.
But when there were questions of Lawson of should he be in Formula 1, he obviously tried it at Red Bull and it didn't work out, and they didn't get rid of him. They fed him back into their junior team, their sister team.
No, I think he's answered that question quite well this year.
That's what I'm saying. He's really, it's like the stress of the Red Bull is, he knows he's probably never going to get asked for that seat again, and he's just living a stress-free life, and it's bringing out the best in him. So yeah, I'm going to give it to both of them.
Over to me then. Just so that I can say my fun fact, I'm going to give my driver of the day to Lewis Hamilton. I mean, we've both kind of covered, you've all kind of covered the reasons as to why. I'm going to give it to him because it is he might have already held this to be fair, but he now holds the record for the longest gap between their first and their last victories of 19 years and 4 days. It just shows that he is still that guy. And he's also now the 7th oldest winner in history, but the oldest was 53 years old, so I don't think he's likely to beat that. just as a side note, if you ever want to see Lewis Hamilton's name written down 100 times, go and look up F1 driver records, because he holds a lot of them. I mean, a lot of them. Midfield maestro for me, a man who's really developed a soft spot in my heart this year, is Pierre Gasly. I'm going to give it to my man Pierre. Another solid performance. Alpine did a driver swap with a few seconds, to be fair. Colapinto had to slow right down to let Gasly past. They let him past, and it paid off. They finished P7 and P8. Obviously, Colapinto had a penalty which dropped him down. But, another very solid performance from Gasly, bringing up the best of the rest, as it were, behind the top-end drivers. So my midfield maestro this week is Pierre Gasly. Right. That brings us to the time of the show where it's time for Grid News.
Hello and welcome to Grid News. So, Max Verstappen is delighted. The engine changes have been agreed for 2027 and 2028 in a two-step phased change. So at the moment we're 50-50 between like the electrical power and the combustion. And we're going to go to 60-40, so more engine, less battery. And that's going to be in two phases. It took a little while to kind of agree to it, because not all of the engine suppliers, manufacturers were thrilled about it, but they've come to a compromise, they've reached an agreement, and we will have more engine power for the old men who like the engines.
Who like cars that drive fast.
Yeah. So Pirelli has had their contract extended until 2028, and then after that there'll be a bidding process or whatever to see who will become the next tyre supplier. They could potentially put their hat in the ring again after. I think they kind of thought this might be their last run at it, but maybe they'll have another go. And this will be 17 years, I believe, of one tyre supplier. Wow. So it's a long time. Formula One's been around 76 years, and so that's like a substantial chunk of the sport has been just Pirelli tyres. Then we've got the Monaco. Oh my goodness me. What to unpick from this? So Gasly had his penalties. We said on the podcast, Gasly with all his penalties. Lost out on a podium. I gave driver of the day to Isak Hadjar. More for me, because Gasly had his penalties reversed, and up he goes into P3. I do hear that Hadjar is yet to hand over the trophy, which is quite funny.
Refusing to give it back.
Which he's like,
not as a joke, he actually has it.
He actually has it. He's like, I don't know what the excuse is. I don't think that the drivers don't keep the trophies. It goes to the team.
No, they don't. They'll go to Red Bull. Yeah.
The team is like, it's been held up in customs. I don't know what their excuse is. Obviously, a lot of drivers have spoken out about this and said that it's unfair. People, Hamilton, Russell, Piastri, they had penalties that were served during the race and therefore could not be changed. They couldn't be corrected afterwards. So Mercedes have asked the FIA for a right to review for Russell's penalties, but I don't really know what could come of this. Russell had his penalty and then he didn't serve it correctly, so had another penalty. So the only one they could really look to change is that initial one, but because he didn't serve it correctly, so he had to have his drive-through penalty. It dropped him right to the back of the grid after the safety cars, or the red flag. McLaren have also launched an appeal against Gasly's penalty reversal, so they, I guess, want the penalties to be reinstated. And Red Bull have also launched an appeal, because for McLaren and for Piastri, he could have been, he had his own penalty to deal with, which could have changed his race as well. There were so many races that got...
it's a weird precedent for the FIA to have set by reversing that penalty.
Gasly's only got that P3 because everyone else in front of him had a penalty. That's not... That's
true.
not, oh yes, well done, that's restored on merit. That's, you're the only one who's had their penalty reversed, despite all of them being for the same reason. So, I last week lent on them not being reversed, because, there seems to be a mix-up between the FIA and the stewards, but the teams were sort of told about this, so,
Yeah, I think it was
to
wrong
do
for
one
them to
and
be
not the
given the
others is-
penalties.
Yeah.
But I think it's worse to reverse one when you can only reverse Gasly's because he hadn't served them, and to only reverse one of them, even though they were all wrong. I think that's just a ridiculous
That's even
decision
worse.
that they have reached. And
Because they've admitted they were wrong now, whilst only rectifying one of them. So it
exactly,
makes no sense.
and it's not the difference between 8th and 9th where it's a point or two. These are
It's massive, yeah.
podiums, and for
Yeah.
for Red Bull and McLaren and Alpine, they're not on the podium every week at the minute, and then so it's a great result for Alpine, but it's
But for
really
only Alpine.
it's really bizarre, and I don't personally agree with it. So it'll be interesting to see where this McLaren and Red Bull appeal takes the decision. And that is it for grid news.
I actually just want to quickly, very, very
Yeah,
quickly.
of course.
So Red Bull obviously have not had a great start to the season, and they've been speaking to Max, and they've said, "Hey, we're going to try and go on a bit of a recruiting spree." Obviously, they've lost quite a few people over the last couple of years, but people that they were sort of maybe interested to, these are all rumors, by the way, but said, well, Red Bull, don't know about that. What can you tell us about Max's position at Red Bull? Can we get a commitment that he's going to stay? And obviously Max has a contract for next year, but again, there's rumors that have performance clauses in there, which is fairly likely.
Clause.
And they've sort of gone to Max and said, look, can you give us this sort of guarantee so maybe we can get some people on board? And he has said, no, I can't give you a guarantee.
Ooh.
So whether that's him out of the sport or maybe a Mercedes move, I mean, who knows? It's all rumours, but I just wanted to chuck that out there.
Now that I will just say this because you said that, so now I'll say something. With Mercedes, we always said, Toto was happy with his lineup, but if Max were available, he would definitely be open to that. George is not giving the best account of himself. I know he obviously was on the podium today, this week, and Antonelli wasn't, but that was Antonelli's failure. If Antonelli was, he had 4 laps left. If he hadn't have had that failure, he would have beaten George.
Yeah.
And we've always said,
True.
George has been great last year and become like the leader of the team this year, and these last 6 races we haven't seen that. And so if Max does become available, we always thought that George would be the one to go, but he is
we kept saying it'd be Antonelli to go just because of, even though he's a good youngster, but I think that you're right, I think that conversation has changed a lot already.
100%. And who are you going to take, this young 19-year-old with this raw talent and speed who seems to have really matured in the last year? Or are you going to keep George who's...
who's getting beaten by that
Max
19.
is probably what? Yeah. Max is the same age as George, probably. And he's Max Verstappen.
Exactly.
Bit of a no-brainer.
So this is the real end of grid news now.
So, looking ahead then, we have a 1-week gap, which is lovely. Gives me time to watch some World Cup games. But then we move on to the Red Bull Ring of Austria. Harry, why don't you give me your prediction for Austria? Give me your top 3.
I always struggle with the predictions. I'm not sure they're very accurate, but last week,
we should do a tally of how accurate it is.
Yeah.
And I can imagine it's very bad.
Last week I said Russell, Hamilton, Antonelli, I believe, which was the qualifying top 3.
Okay.
So, that's close enough.
Not bad. Yeah, that's pretty good.
I am going to repeat exactly that.
Ooh.
I think Russell needs, for all the reasons we just spoke about, needs a strong European section. He needs a strong next few races, and I do think he'll do that. I think this race, despite second, maybe wasn't the best showing, but I do think he'll be on top form. soon.
Lovely. Ellie, why don't you hit me with your prediction?
Yeah, I'm gonna go purely on vibes. No backup. No like, oh, this track will suit this. Okay, I'm going Antonelli, Hamilton, Russell, and then all the way down. Blah 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 blah. 22nd, Lance Stroll.
Well, I think one of those four is gonna be correct.
Yeah.
Okay, over to me then. I think, Red Bull's home race not going to help them very much. I don't see them getting anywhere near the podium. I think we're going to see Leclerc have a bit of a comeback. I'm going to say Antonelli comes in, gets himself a win, followed by Lewis Hamilton keeping his championship charge going, and then Charles Leclerc back in form with a podium. That's my top three. That one definitely won't come true, but we can always dream. Time then to bring us towards an end for our final thoughts for this week for the Barcelona Catalunya Grand Prix. Ellie, why don't you start us off? What are your final thoughts for this week?
My final thoughts is I have had it up to here with this whole town nonsense. I do not care anymore. And why is everyone making these stupid little videos for their social media of like, oh, where's the towel, Kimmy? I mean, come on. It's a towel. Get over it. Do you know what I mean? Like, these people are millionaires and they're this hung up on a blooming towel. Apparently Kim Kardashian even gave him a towel and it said like, to Kimmy from Kim. And he gets it and he goes, is this actually from her? Of course it's not from her, Kimmy.
Yeah.
It's from a PR company, maybe.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? God, leave off.
Well, speaking of people who get overly passionate about towels, Harry, why don't you give me your final thoughts for this week?
I would like to take this moment, speaking of PR, I've been advised to read a statement. I would like to offer my sincere apologies to one Kim Kardashian. I spoke too harshly of you. I said Lewis was not listening to the red flags in dating you, when really I should have been congratulating you because whatever you're doing, honey, it is working. That man, he's back on form, and clearly something's in the water because keep it up. So I'd like to apologize.
I will say that in an interview, Lewis was like, I'm just really happy. And I was like, oh, Lewis,
exactly.
Disgusting.
Because, seriously, on a point, it's, when you're so close with these margins, having that mental capacity, like we've talked about, to stay strong in the moment means so much. And having that happiness, no matter where it comes from, the people around you, means a lot. So, that could be coming from there. As much as
if they break up, it's going to be catastrophic for his title challenge.
Yeah. Or maybe that's exactly what you need. Maybe you get that angry fire.
You should never drive angry. I saw an advert saying that.
Yeah. I just want to one tiny final thought as well. Just aimed at the absolute GOAT Lance Stroll, has broken Fernando Alonso's qualifying streak of 48 races or whatever.
40,
yeah. So absolutely fair play. Beat a legend and equal machinery there. Truly.
And what were they, 21st and 22nd?
Yeah. A second. They were second off the pace of Bottas in 20th.
Yeah. Bless him.
Oh, wow. Not even off the front. That was brutal. Yeah. Well, bringing us to a close then with my own final thought, save myself for last. Oh, God, I should have thought of one, shouldn't I? No, my final thought is it was very nice to see how emotional Lewis was at victory, how much it meant to him. It was a good reminder that everyone in this sport, and all sports, are human beings who have joy, sadness, passion, and it was lovely to see that on display and show that these drivers aren't robots, they're real people, and how much even just someone like Lewis, who's achieved everything you could possibly dream of, how much a race win still means to him was lovely to see.
Yeah.
And on that lovely, wholesome note, we will leave it there. Thank you very much for listening to this episode of Rear Winging It, the Formula One podcast. Please follow us on the socials. There'll be all the links on Spotify. Like, subscribe, download, all of that good stuff. And have a great week. And we'll see you after Austria. Goodbye.
Bye.